Is that okay? Okay. All right. We also have a website. So it's like a campaign website. We call it Take That. Okay. It's a joke. It's a joke. Okay. But that's our website. Okay. This is also one that we programmed ourselves. It's actually written in Jekyll, Liquid. I don't know if you know that, but we're going to do a bit of that today because we need a bit of code to exemplify how we work with code. So I'm actually going to build a website in Jekyll for you today. In some containers, Devcontainers. So that's how, if you come in here, you will also have a chance to follow some of our events. We also have an event program. Next is going to be a hackathon in FlowTech, and we're going to have a book club where we're going to discuss the newest thing from Gene Kim and his latest release. But today we're here at Devcontainers. As I said, I have prepared a demo for you, and I'm going to go through it, and as I work my way through it, I'm going to do the commits, and this is publicly available, so if you go to github.com, we have an organization called the Tech Collective, spelled in one word, and in there you'll find a container called devcontainer-demo. So everything that we do now, you can actually go home and do the same thing again, and you can see the commits that we're doing. And if you want to do it yourself and not redo the commits, but actually just basically redo it, then this is essentially my talking manuscript, the README file. So you can actually work through this as a tutorial. So you can take it home with you, right? And I'm notoriously known for speaking fast and a lot, but today we're going to build some containers. There's going to be some built-in breaks, really good. So when we build a container, you think, oh, that's boring, watching containers built. But that's when we do Q&A, okay? Cool. Then we know that I get to answer questions. Other than that, one thing I need to mention is, if any of you would like something similar to what we're doing today, presented at your own company, then as long as this is the time scale, 45 minutes, an hour, this is equivalent for us for a coffee break. So you can invite us for coffee, but you can also invite us to come and do something similar at your company and demonstrate something similar if you want to show some of this to your colleagues. So call us if that's the case, right? First fix is free. Did I say that? Okay. All right. I have a demo. The first thing I want to show you is really, I go to, actually, can I get some light, Jonas? I want to show you I'm still new here, so I'm learning a lot, but this is an implement thing, the PAP cards. We do PAP cards a lot, right? So, do we have lights? Do we have some lights? No, I'm stressing you. I will get started though, right? So you see if you can follow along here. How many of you know Docker? All right, cool. How many of you do not know Docker? All right, okay, but follow along, right? Take it away. But the thing is that Docker is actually like an engine that runs. It all starts, with a Docker file, right? And a Docker file, that's the description of how to build an image that we can run in Docker, okay? Do you know what a dev container is? How many of you have been working with dev containers? All right. So it's essentially a technology that, to some extent, extends the Docker file. So you would actually apply the devcontainer.json as part of the build process. So if I wanted to have a Docker image out of this one, I would start a build process. And what that build process, if you were building with Docker, it would stop right there. The dev container basically continues with a handful of extensions and features and nice extras that allows you to extend your Docker file, but nevertheless end up with something that is a Docker image. So that's your Docker image. And then you would normally go and run that in your Docker, right? So I would install Docker on my machine, and then I would run it there, right? So the next thing I'm going to show you is that GitHub has what they call a CodeSpace, which essentially is lending you a tiny tad of resources out there on the internet, and instead of firing up the Docker container on my machine, it fires up in the cloud, and then you can tunnel into it. You can do that from VS Code, or you can do it from a browser. Either way, it's going to be, like being there yourself, essentially having, access to a machine. The repo, we need to do code, right? So it's Git, and we need a repository. This repo can go either, I can put it here, and I can mount it into my image, or I can actually put it into my CodeSpace. So when we get to the end, I'm going to show you a handful of different approaches on where to put your repo, right? But in most cases, we're going to start out with a CodeSpace, and that all happens here on GitHub. So a repository, I push code. What you normally would do here is something like, I want to copy this path so that I can clone the repository on my own machine, right? That's normal behavior, right? What we do now is that we go to CodeSpaces, and then I create a CodeSpace on main. This will fire up what appears to be VS Code now running in my browser. It's actually VS Code running in my browser, and what appears to be a real Linux machine down here. So I can, if I go ls, that works. I can go docker run hello world. Will this work? It works. I'm running Docker in the cloud. It's pretty cool, actually. There's a lot of things that we can do. I have GH, you know GH, the GitHub command line extension. Pretty cool tool, really. Nothing that you cannot do in GitHub command line interface. It works out of the box. I'm actually already authenticated when I work like this, so I don't have to log in. That's part of the contract between GitHub and the CodeSpaces, so it just works out of the box. I can even manipulate my Accenture cloud. Damn, I can't. Okay, let's fix that then. What I want to do is that I would like to, I'm going to close this one. I would like to add some dev container files. CodeSpaces, add dev container configuration files. The thing is, I haven't specified any dev container files yet, but it just means that I'm running on the default files, right? So if I don't specify anything, it runs on default. So let's see what default means in this context. I'm going to add it. I'm going to modify the active configuration, which is actually, the configuration is there, but it's not visible. Makes it visible, literally. Now it immediately sees that I have now a dev container which has a dev container JSON file in it. And now the CodeSpace says, oh, there's something changed, so please build again, which is not true because it didn't change anything yet, right? One thing that I would like to add here is if I go and say Azure CLI, I want to just keep the defaults. All right. So now I'm basically running on the default image, which is called Universal version 2. That's a default. That's a current default on GitHub, and I added the feature that the Azure CLI is now available. Well, actually not yet, right? You know enough Docker to know that I need to rebuild the image before this works. So I need to rebuild the image and then put my dev container JSON on top of it. But that would be equivalent to actually adding that stuff into my Docker file. But I don't have to mess with my Docker file. It's like a post command. Pretty cool. All right, I want to do more. So I'll do, let's say, the code spell checker. I like that. Now we're doing a website. It makes sense that, to static code analysis, see if there's any spell checks. I have the option to add that to my dev container JSON file. If I do that, it just basically, adds it. I can go and say CoPilot. I can add that too. I can even add the chat function. We're going to do some markdown. I can just go, completely the markdown linter. I like that. Then we don't have to merge white spaces. And I can even do, markdown preview in GitHub flavor style in VS Code. Cool stuff, right? You can just continue. Let's imagine that we were software developers, we were on the same team, and this is, the code base that we're working on, and these are the features that we need. So instead of doing your recommendation, saying, Niklas, please remember to install this plugin, this is not a recommendation. This is just basically part of the image. So let's go with this and say that I want to rebuild this container. And you'd say, no, don't you need, what's going to happen now? I didn't commit this file, and I'm going to rebuild, and where's that file going to live until I rebuild and stuff like that? So rest assured that this is a warning, that there is no warning. The warning is, wow, you're rebuilding your dev container, and you have uncommitted files in your repository, but you're safe, you can do that. Okay, thanks. So in this sense, it's also like adding a new dimension to Git, right? You have things that are, in your dirty, and then you can stage them, and then you can commit them, and then you can push them. Now you can even have dirty files in your dev container, right? Outside your file system. So this is where we are essentially just building. Questions? Yeah.
So the dev container.
Maybe actually this is really cool. We actually have this is cool. Do this.
I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about the dev container, how it works behind the scenes. So does it add layers on top of the existing Docker file?
Yes. You can almost see what's going on here. From the perspective that we normally, I don't know how often you actually sit and look at your dev containers built. Yeah, it's cool when we do that. But you can see this is actually what's going on here, and you can see now that it's essentially just somehow extending the Docker file. So the Docker build just basically continues where, when the Docker file ends, the dev container JSON file takes over and continues building. Yeah.
Is this a better experience than just running VS Code locally?
What?
How is this a better experience than just running VS Code locally?
We are going to run VS Code locally in a second in a code space or in a dev container. I'm going to show you because that's a good question. So I think what you're asking, who would want to do professional code work in a web browser when you have VS Code, right? Who wouldn't want to do that? Well, I've been trying to do that, and I agree with you. Sometimes it's just better to go to VS Code. But we will get there to VS Code as well later. All right. Things are good. Looks like when my file tree shows up, it's finished. We're good. Just want to make you the point that the Azure command line interface is actually, takes a bit to load. I don't know. Questions? No. It's gonna come. Come on. Damn it. It works. Still, you need to authenticate and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that I actually managed to install the AZ command line interface just by mentioning to my dev container, hey, I forgot I want my dev container. Normally, you would have to go back and rebuild your Docker file, reconstruct your Docker file, and do a lot of things there to install that. Now, just, hey, I need that feature. Forgot. So that's a cool thing, right? That you build on top of that. But this is essentially VS Code. So it is literally the same, code snippet that running. It's just running in your browser. I'll just go and commit it, and I'll say yes, and I say added dev container, added dev container, like that, and then I sync. Pretty cool. All right. So what is this useful for? I mean, I could go and say, are we ready? Yeah. So, oh no, so I got it here, sorry. I have LiveShare, that's a plugin, it's already installed. You know LiveShare in VS Code? Essentially that I can ask somebody to come and help me with this code here. So I can take this. Now it's copied into my clipboard. I can go and do an issue, and I can create a new issue, and I can say help, and then I poke Asser, and I submit a new issue. He picks it up immediately, Let's see what happens here. So what's happening here is actually I'm opening up a channel. You can see that when I have my LiveShare open, I can see who's now. I can see Asser is entering. I can go and make this read write. You can see Asser is taking over. He can see my code. Can you write my code? Can you hack something? Do you have access to my? Yeah, you can. All right. Can you access my terminal? Yeah, okay, good. So, can you help me set up a Jekyll site then? Sure. Do you know Jekyll? Some of you, how many of you do not know Jekyll? Those of you who have hands up, how many of you do know GitHub Pages? Okay, so essentially Jekyll was a technology that GitHub invented to create static websites from a Jamstack, JavaScript, APIs, and Markdown in order to host static web pages. So it's actually a product developed by GitHub. It's written in Ruby. It runs in Ruby, and you install it with a handful of Ruby gems, and it's basically just from a package manager, and then it builds some code. If I go and look what happened from this command here, Jekyll is apparently so popular in this world that it's already built in. So the Jekyll command line interface is already available in the universal image. If I go and look what's going to happen here. So we have some posts, not a lot of files. Actually, it added 7 files. So did you do the build? Do I do the build? Sure. I do the build. Okay. So it will be bundle update. Bundle, that's the Ruby package manager, because we have gems, right? So it's bundle. It's funny. Okay. It's installing whatever is defined in my gem file, and then I can say bundle exec Jekyll serve. There are a few, warnings, blah, blah, things aren't maybe, but this is interesting. Something is now running. You see I have ports, and something is now running on port 4000. This will pop up when you open up a new port. If you forget to click it, it's not that far away. Just go into ports and it will be listed in there, and I can click on the icon of the web and it will actually host my website. So I built a Jekyll website that I can now, and Jekyll is actually a technology that GitHub Pages understand out of the box. So if you put Jekyll code in your Git repository and ask GitHub Pages to serve it, it will build it and serve it. So this code is actually now a website. Literally, I can host this on GitHub. Before we do that, I want to show you some of the things that went bad here. Let's fix those problems before they were in the terminal. There's stuff here going on. But before we do that, I can commit this and sync it. And now I want to go and optimize my website. I can do that in the gem file, actually holds the key to this. It says in so many words, if you want to use Jekyll for GitHub Pages, then you should take this one out and use this one instead. Because now it loads a lot of gems that are supporting GitHub Pages. So essentially, same thing. So, and that's the gem file. So if I want to use this, I need to do bundle update. And bundle exec Jekyll serve. Very difficult spelling. Questions? I'm just trying to add a bit of code here so that we can, resemble what's really going on. I just want to add, different layers of complexity that are typically the layers of complexity that you suffer from in your software development teams, right? It works on my machine, cool, but it does not work on my machine. I've got the different package. I mean, my environment is drifting. I don't know, it works with Pauline, it doesn't work with me. And what do I need to install? It worked yesterday. Oh my God, I'm depending on a package that it's updated from latest, and latest changed out on the internet. So today it doesn't work, it built yesterday. What's gonna happen? So the thing is that instead of having all that frustration in your software development team, just lock it down in a dev container. This is a really, really useful purpose of containers, right? Because now we all work in the same environment. And when I'm done here, and you go home, and tomorrow what you do is that you go and create a template or a fork of this repository that we have here, and you clone that to your VS Code on your own machine, and you run it in this container, it will work. That's pretty cool. So we don't have to do that live share thing, right, that we did with ASA, which has the disadvantage that ASA actually impersonated me. So when we look at the commit that we did together in a second, it's going to have my name on it, even if it was ASA doing it, right? So it's probably not the best way to collaborate, right, in a paired program or whatever. This is pretty cool. Now we have, solid proof that this is working. Except the fact that it doesn't. Yeah?
Just a brief one. When you restart the code space, is your bash history reset as well? I don't assume it's...
Yeah, it is, yeah. It is if I rebuild, but actually if I leave this container here, depending on what subscription plan I'm using with GitHub, it depends a little bit on how long time it's going to sit there before GitHub is going to delete it for me. But if I ditch this container now and I come back to it in 4 days, then my bash history will remain. But we do not share the bash history. So when you build your container on top of this dev container, your code space, you will have your own bash, right? Yeah. Okay, let's see what's happened here. Apparently, this web brick needs to go in. And also apparently I have a warning. So if you go and look at the gem log file, you'll see that this GitHub gem, it loads like, I don't know, 70 different plugins, right? So my log file is now, way bigger than it was before. And some of these are pulling in new dependencies and then it breaks again. This should do it. And still I haven't committed anything yet, but if I go bundle update, you'll see that I get the things that I just installed, and now it looks like it's gonna work. Cool. It works again, right? I want to do, this is the configuration file for Jekyll, just if you're bored by Jekyll, and then this is the last thing I'm going to do, then we're good. It's going to have a theme. I want to use a remote theme. That was GitHub CoPilot kicking in. That was not IntelliSense, right? So I just basically said, I want to do a remote theme, and then instead of actually adding the theme from a gem that was installed as part of my setup, I'm just now pointing to a repository out on the internet. This is pretty cool because if I want to have a different template, now I have access to actually go and change that template. Well, not this one because this is not mine, but I could fork that and then I could use my fork as a remote template and I would have full control over even my template, right? As files that I can, but I need to take this one out instead. And then this is just a little bit of GitHub Pages technology that when I host a web like this and I do not specify a CNAME I want to host it from, and I don't in this occasion, then I need to find I need to find my, where is it? My base URL, there you go. Because this will be hosted in a folder that has the same name as my repository. This is how GitHub Pages works out of the box. So by doing this, every time I refer to a backslash, which is meant to be the root of my repository, it will know that it will have to add this base URL, otherwise my site would break. So this is for the build process, really. If I do something like this, what happens is that I don't have to do another bundle update, but I do have to stop and restart my Jekyll server because this is the only time my Jekyll configuration file is read. So works like this, up and running. Now pay attention to the fact that it's not running anymore in the root. It's running in a subfolder because this is how it's going to run in GitHub Pages. So I want to mimic that in my development environment as well, right? Cool. Just want to keep track of where I am. I think just want to show, oh, this is cool. This is cool. So I'm just going to commit this. So I don't know if you know, of course you know VS Code quite well, right? Are you using VS Code? How many of you are not using VS Code? Or a handful. But it works as you would expect. I have my Git things here, but this is essentially just, this is my dirty repository. If I add something, now it's staged, and if I commit it, then it's committed, and then I have to push it. So another thing that I can do, I can just do my Git things. I can say git add whatever's changed, git commit message optimized site, go away. See what happens over there, right? It just follows along. The sync, that would be a push, right? Git push. Goes away. So these are just shortcuts for your everyday, most useful Git commands, right? So do whatever you like. The thing I wanted to show you is another dev container feature. Really cool. I'm going to take this from the README file, and what I'm going to do is then, and then I'll explain it. I'll add it to JSON like this. So now I have a post create command. This is a command that's going to run after everything is built and loaded and up and running, and I'm in my dev container. Then it's going to run this command in my dev container. So it's outside the build process or the mount process. And what it does is essentially that it takes something similar to this, and then I want to go and add a file. Let's say I want to have a git config file. This is a way that I can actually have a git config file and put it in the root of my repository where we do not normally read git config files, right? This is not a level of git config files that's supported by Git out of the box. But this is where I would like to have my git config file and share it with my teams. So all, if we had a lot of, the undo check-in or the redo check-in, this is my favorite, this is my graph history with all the, formatting that I like, right? So this is my, my tree function. So now I can do something like git tree. Will it work? No, not yet. Because what this command does is that it's actually telling if git config is already included in the path, then it doesn't do anything, but if it's not, then it will add it to the part. So it tells the git config file to load this git config file. So let's try to rebuild. Rebuild the container like this. Questions? This is fast. Yeah?
About secrets, can you, if you have some secrets in the environment, can you load them from?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So you asked about the secrets. I can have workspace secrets. So I can actually go into GitHub in the settings in there, and I can go and define secrets that are shared among the CodeSpace. Oh, sorry, the workspace. And if we set them there, I can set my own personal secrets in GitHub, but I can also have workspace scoped secrets. So that's actually kind of a built-in vault. So yes, we can share secrets in this setup. And actually, there's one secret. I mean, there's a GitHub token that's already automatically configured and set as a GitHub token, which is essentially if you expose that as an environment variable when you run, then the GH command line interface is already authenticated as you in your context. And this is how actually GitHub command line interfaces run in GitHub Actions. We can see that in a bit. The thing I wanted to show you now is that now I have a nice, ASCII graph tree that shows things and stuff. The thing is that everything that I put in my git config now is working, including something like something that I always miss, like this one. I don't know, if you push a local branch to your region and your region does not know of this branch, it will say, what are you tracking? If you set this, it will just basically push it and then add the new branch, use the same name as locally, and track it. You don't have to do anything. Cool. Right? So there's a lot of neat tricks that you have in a team, and I bet if you ask a large team, all people have a lot of tricks, right? And now we can share them. All right. All right. Next up, let's get this website up and running. Let's see that I need, hang on. I've been cheating a bit. I'll go through this when I paste it later. This is the GitHub action that will build my website in a second. But I want to show you a neat trick. GH browse. So GH browse, the GitHub command line interface, I want to browse it. Basically, I want to go where this repository that I'm currently in lives on GitHub. I don't know, but I tend to end up opening a shitload of tabs, and I can't find the thing that I'm looking for. So I just basically open up more tabs. That takes me directly to GitHub in this repository on the settings page. Pretty cool, right? The thing I want to do is I want to say, I want to use GitHub Pages, and I want to deploy using GitHub Actions. And it will suggest that I can do something like this, and I say, thank you, but no. So I'm going to do it something like this. The thing is, I mean, I can show you where I got this from, but this is actually part of the comment. So this is the Jekyll community recommending a GitHub action. The other one was GitHub recommending a Jekyll action, right? So I'm just using the community version instead. And one thing that I changed is really, really cool, is that the only thing that I have to do, I don't have to install anything to be compliant with nothing, right? The only thing that I do is that I say, I want to use this Docker image from Docker Hub. That's it. And then the rest is just, as you would expect in a GitHub action. How many of you use GitHub action? Cool. How many of you use something similar? Cool. How many of you do not use YAML-based declarative pipelines? Oh, you got to get started. This is the shit, right? Okay, cool. I'm going to commit this. Yes, please. And as you would expect, adding a YML file in my workflows.github folder would immediately, when I commit, start a build. And it's going to build and it's going to deploy. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. Questions? No question. Oh, there's a question. Paulina's coming with the.
Hello?
Yeah?
Yes, so we can hear. I have a question. I understand, but sometimes when you consult in some company or you work, for example, as out-staff team, sometimes they even not allow you to load your source code to your own machine. Here you just assume that you can use it in GitHub, but by some compliance regulations, different countries not allowed to. Can you use some custom workers, some custom virtual machines, for example?
Yeah.
Devcontainers.
So the only so this is what I'm going to show you next, how this is actually, so I mean, you're anxious, you want to get into VS Code or run to some more secure environment. So this is what I'm going to show you next, how this is actually going to run in VS Code and how it's going to run either locally on your PC if you have Docker installed, or similar to this, that you can even start your VS Code and then tunnel into the CodeSpace. So you can actually have the local machine running VS Code, but still have the CodeSpace in the cloud. Or you could put everything on your own computer. So the only requirement you need in order to do this in a safe, silver paper hat environment inside your organization is that you work on a machine that has, that's capable of running Docker images. This is a prerequisite for being able to use containers in development. Containers, that's a Docker technology. If I don't have access to Docker, then it won't work. But it could be completely inside a shielded organization, complete stealth mode. Anyway, we are now hosting the web page for free. Yeah, forever, yeah. This is actually how our web page is hosted. The checkthat.club website is hosted like this. All right, now I want to do the thing that you wanted to see. I'm going to go into code, I'm going to find that one, I'm going to, instead of clicking on it, opening in a web browser, we hate web browsers, what I want to do is that I want to open it in Visual Studio Code. Obviously, this only works if I have Visual Studio Code installed on my machine, but if I don't, then it will ask you to install it, right? So it will work no matter what. So what it's doing now, it's actually not using my machine for anything really. Before I started my browser and then connected to a CodeSpace. Now I just started VS Code and connected to a CodeSpace. So it's essentially the same thing I'm doing more or less, right? It's just, you know, in a different environment. But all the things that I can do in these environments, it's the same thing, right? I don't know if you ever, sometimes you miss that. I mean, I don't know if you know that, but when you miss the terminal in a setting like this, you need to be very careful, and you need to, at this point here, you can pull it up. Cool, eh? Trick. The thing that I can do here is that I can say build, I can say cd docs, like that. And then I can bundle update, and then I do bundle, it takes a while, sorry. A little bit faster, not a lot. I mean, this is actually not the machine, you know, performance that's a problem. It's pulling stuff off the internet, really, right? So it's not very different than the wait we had before. Questions? Yeah. Oh, we got a lot of questions.
Yeah, I do not run Docker, I run containerd. Is Devcontainer dependent on Docker? Good question. I don't think so. I think that you can use compliant container technology. So please go and test and write back to the community if it works. I honestly don't know, but it's a good question. I would expect it to work, though. I would expect it to work. Yeah.
So usually when you're working, it's not unusual if you say you're training a model or something. You have some local data that you're not going to be uploading to GitHub just because it's optimized.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do some port forwarding or some way to access your local directories from CodeSpaces in a secure manner so you're able to access some files so you don't have to have everything on CodeSpaces?
Yeah.
So you can still practice some disciplines of like infrastructure as code or like .dnb or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility?
Yeah. I'm not going to demonstrate that here today, but I am going to demonstrate something similar. Because I am going to show you how that I can pull the GitHub repository and have that locally, and then run the container and mount that inside the container. But if that were literally local files, then you would have to mount yet another volume in, right? And I think the question would be something like, please get back to the community. I'm sure this can be done. We can ask Find or CoPilot in a second if we can do it. I haven't done it before, but you can do that in a normal Docker container, just with the mount switch. So I'm sure that you can do that. I just don't know where to find it.
I did it once where I was working with that I could do some port forwarding.
Yeah.
But I ran into some inconsistencies depending on what your native operating system was. So that's why I was just
yeah.
There was something there.
Cool. Yeah. So that we're very dependent on that, and I'm going to show you that too. I'm gonna crash this computer in a second, right? Yeah. I'll say bundle exec Jekyll serve. Blah 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 blah. Now this is slightly more interesting, because despite the fact that my container is running in the cloud, the local host of this website is actually running on my own machine, this physical machine. So my test environment is running here, but my code is still out there. All right.
Ba-dum. What else? Let me see how far I got with the. Oh yeah. Let's do something really cool. Let's try to fire this up in the local machine. I just want to show you. This is my Docker environment. I don't have any Docker running at this point, right? So let's say that I wanted to. That's another nice feature I really like about GH. Finally, I got a syntax that I can remember. GH repo clone the tech collective /dev container.demo. I don't need to know the HTTPS protocol or anything. This is just how I would do it, right? And it works. Just another way of cloning, but now you don't have to copy that clone path anymore. I mean, just do it like this. Cool. You know where we are, right? This is my repository now locally on my machine. Agreed? And I can start up code like this. So I start code from my current directory. Now what's going to happen is that it's going to see that I have a dev container in setup, and it's going to offer me, hey, this sounds cool, right? Don't you want to reopen this in your container? I said, that's exactly what I want to do. So now it tries to actually take that image and start it up in my local Docker on my machine. We don't have to wait long for this before it crashes. So what's wrong? The thing is, apparently, the default image that Microsoft offers out of GitHub is not Mac M1 or M2 compliant. There is no ARM built for that machine. I would say that's a flaw. I know a lot of software developers writing code on Mac, right? So I mean, again, they could have fixed that. But we're going to fix it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to edit my JSON file locally, just for a second. And then I'm going to go and show you that in this dev container file folder, I can just add universal. And that was because that was the name of my dev container file. And then I'm going to move it in there. I'm going to move it out of the way. And the reason why I'm going to do that is I can have as many dev container JSON files I want in my repository. So I can have multiple configurations, but only one of them can be the default. And that is the dev container JSON file in the .dev container folder. That's the default. But any other dev container JSON file, I can just move one folder level down, not two, then it can't see it. So one folder level down, and then I can do whatever I want. I can have 10 dev containers in here, but I want to make a new default, right? And the one that I want to do is based on a new file called Dockerfile. All right? I'm going to ask, just because I can. I've tested it and it works. Use Ruby version 3.2.3 Bullseye. That is, I know they have an ARM built for that, so that's why I'm specifying this one. And set the language to support BOM characters in Liquid, which is one of the technologies embedded in Jekyll. And then add, the usual default work dir and expose the Jekyll-related ports. I can't remember what they are, but you probably know that. And then it actually builds a Docker file for me. Will this work? I don't know. Let's give it a go, right? So now I have a Docker file. I just want to commit everything here, so like this. Right? And then I'm going to go back
I'm going to rebuild and reopen in a container. I mean, that's not an option I had in my web interface, right? So it knows where I am, right? Because my web interface did not offer to reopen in the container, so it knows that I'm on a local version of VS Code. I'm going to take that one, and then I'm going to see what happens again here. Did I make a mistake? Oh yeah, sorry. That wasn't. I'm going to say add dev container. So I only added the Docker file, right? Sorry, I'm one step ahead of myself, right? My manuscript is right. I want to add the dev container files, and it says, is that you or your workspace? Hell, that's my workspace, right? We're together in this. And then it says, I found a Docker file. Don't you want to use your Docker file? This only works if the Docker file is in the root of the repo, just so that you mention. You can always move that Docker file into another folder later, but you know, for discovering the Docker file automatically, it needs to be in the root. I want to do that. Really cool. And then I add some GitHub features. I could add Azure. I could add common utilities. I like that. That's my set shell. I know my set shell and all that, things that I like. Whatever, something like that, right? What I probably also should do, I can keep my defaults. What I probably also should do is that I should go in here and say, I have a lot of things that I would like to, you know, I have my post create commands and I have customizations like this. I can just go and say, these are also cool stuff that I would like to have with me. I like those. I want to use those again, right? So this is my new dev container file. Now, I commit that. And now I rebuild. And now it actually sees that I have two configurations. Right? It sees my universal and the other one that's called use my, so that was just the name that we put in there, right? Existing Docker file is the name of this one. Yeah, that's the one I want to use. So, the interesting part of this is actually that you'll see that in a second, I literally get a Docker container up and running on my own PC. Questions while we wait for that? There was one down there that I didn't get to, was there? Later? No? Awkward. Okay, good.
I'll just yell, is it possible to template the dev container files in any?
If it's possible to template them, I actually don't know, but I mean, it's JSON. You can template anything with JSON and then, you know, run it through something, you know, add JSON on top of JSON thing. I don't know actually, but I would imagine yes. So, yes, I would imagine. But I don't know actually, but again, good question. Now we got 3 questions. I actually expect now the community to get back to us and answer these. Yeah.
Can we do authentication? Can we make a member area in the Jekyll website?
Yeah, so actually, you know what? Why we do this? I don't have a lot of time left. I'm done. I just want to show you one thing, and that is actually cloning. So when we're up and running, I'm done. I just want to show you one more thing, and that is this repository that we're at right now, right? You can actually add issues in there, right? Because it's open source, and you can't add content in the repository, but you can add issues, right? So that's one place that we can communicate. Another thing I want to show you that you can do in Jekyll, which is quite cool, is that I will go and turn on. Right now, there's not any comments in here, but if I show you one of our previous
previous events, like the Toyota one. I've added comments. So you can just log in with your GitHub account, and then you can actually add comments in there. So I'll open up for comments on this event, so you can just go in there and add your commentary to the event if you want, right? I'll make sure that I'll do it when David is presenting. But otherwise, just use the GitHub issues, right, on this repository. And yes, we're done. Point being that I'm up and running again, right? And all right, that would not work, but that would work, right? So it seems like we're kind of in a safe environment, and if I build, I would see that again. Let's kill this one, and I'm going to show you the last thing. Then I'm out. I want to do this again, but this time I want to hit this one instead. So the thing is that what it does now is that it's actually not using the repository on my local disk that I cloned. What it's doing is that it's doing the same thing as it did before. It's starting another Docker container, but then it's cloning the code into that Docker container to optimize speed. So it's not mounted from my local disk. It's actually inside the container. And you should see that in a second we have 2 containers running. I'm done. I'm 2-minute overtime. Sorry. That was it. That has never happened before, that I hit the mark with 2 minutes. I mean, that's pretty good. Pretty good. If you have questions, you just reach out to me, right? Cool. Thank you. Now, I think the program right now is actually that you'll have a bio break. You can take more sodas, you can take more beers. We got sandwiches for you. You can go to the toilet. Now it's allowed to use the coffee machines in the back. They're noisy, but now we have a break. So, and we'll give you like 15 minutes. And even if you might still be eating in 15 minutes, it's not a problem. David can live with that.